the Virginia Horse Industry Board, Southwest Virginia Agricultural Association, and the Virginia Christmas Tree Growers Association are proud sponsors of Virginia farming.
This program's brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Large or small, Virginia farmers work year-round to help put food on your table. And Farm Bureau works year-round to help farmers and all Virginians. Farming, it's all good. To learn more, go to vafarmbureau.org.
Polaris, offering its hardest working, smoothest riding off-road ATVs, led by the rugged, more powerful Sportsman 850 HO. Hunt, farm, or trail. Polaris has the Sportsman ATV you want at Polaris.com.
Brought to you by Farm Family. Life, auto, business, farm. Nancy Asher, stable owner, visionary, agent of change. Another personal story on farmfamilypeople.com. Farm Family, the people you know. Hi everybody, welcome to Virginia Farming. I'm Amy Rocher. On this very special edition of Virginia Farming, we're talking about quail. It's a species that is declining, but there is a recovery initiative that's happening throughout the state. Now, birds and deer are also suffering from a decline of woodland habitat. We're going to be talking about that as well. All that straight ahead on this edition of Virginia Farming.
I grew up on a farm, and my dad hunted, and I always was a tag along. And the sweetest sound to me was to hear the bobwhite call. And I think it's so sad now that so many children or even adults never have the privilege of just the heart-stopping sound of the bobwhite. But it's just something about hearing that you just have to stop whatever you're doing and listen.
For hundreds of years, the call of the bobwhite was one of the most common heralds of spring in rural Virginia. But all that has changed. No longer are the places we find quail, batches of brambles, overgrown thickets, grasses, and wildflowers biologists call early successional habitat, woven into the very fabric of our landscape. Over the years, land use and farming practices have gradually become transformed. Modern clean farming techniques discourage weedy borders and overgrown fallow fields. Fescue pastures have replaced prime quail habitat. Urban and suburban landscapes have replaced fence posts and field borders with houses and strip malls. Bobwhite quail populations have now been reduced to isolated pockets. The decline of quail populations and their habitat is a serious cause for alarm and a call to action. Mark Puckett, a biologist heading up Virginia's quail plan, insists recovery is possible.
I've been studying quail now for 18 years. I started reading the literature on quail in 1992, so I've been involved in it for some time. Back in 1992, folks were predicting that by now, quail may be extirpated in much of their range based on the rate of decline. So folks will say, why haven't you done more for quail, or are we losing the battle? And I would argue that we have been able to achieve success in quail management. But an agency alone cannot bring back a species.
Biologists have realized the key to success of any plan for quail recovery depends on private landowners working together to weave quail habitat back into our landscape like a quilt, piece by piece, acre by acre, farm by farm.
I believe if you build it, or if you build a habitat, they'll come.
Hudson Reese is a farmer and sportsman in Southside Virginia. He remembers the glory days of quail.
Back in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't unusual to find 6 to 8 coveys of quail in a day's hunt, or even in a half day's hunt. And it wasn't unusual to kill a limit of 8 quail in a day's hunt.
But today, with quail numbers on a downward spiral, down 80% since 1966, and with quail hunters becoming a vanishing breed, down 90%, Reese believes now is the time to take action.
I think too many hunters have given up instead of giving back. And there are a lot of quail hunters that I guess we could say used to be quail hunters, former quail hunters that have just given up.
Eric Brittle, a Southside Virginia farmer and sportsman, is giving back.
Well, I grew up here this is my family farm here in Southampton, and part of it's in Surrey counties. And my dad was an avid quail hunter back in the 70s and early 80s. And that's all I remember doing during hunting season is walking through these woods and around the field edges with him, hunting quail. On this farm, we have 110 open acres that's farmed. And I've taken 27 of those acres, which comes out to a 120-foot border all the way around the farm in each of these fields, and planted it in the CP33 program through NRCS. That includes warm season grasses and some forbs, and doing a little bit of management for native vegetation. The numbers of quail have increased. I tend to flush a few more coveys around the field edges, and even this year I saw evidence of a second brood late in the year with small chicks in August.
Even though Eric has taken his farm borders out of production, it hasn't cost him anything, and he's found less deer damage.
Overall, the income from the farming and the CP33 program has kept the income from year to year pretty much the same. Haven't cost us any money as far as income from the farming operation. If anything, there's probably one benefit that I'm kind of starting to see. Deer browsing on the soybeans and then the corn, I believe that's minimized. You're taking land that's on the edges of the fields that's not necessarily your best, most productive land in the field, putting this into this program, and as the deer bed in these areas or use these as travel corridors, they're browsing in these CP33 or the CREP areas and not in the fields.
At a farm just down the road, wildlife enthusiast Phil Bain has seen similar results from 5 years of managing for quail on his land.
I've seen mostly the birds rebound. I've seen quite a bit more quail. Seen that, and the turkeys have come back. I think that with understory burning have really benefited the turkey populations. But the ground nesting birds seem to be the main species that have benefited.
So Phil, one thing we're trying to promote here with this whole quail plan is not just to promote quail, but to package it as kind of a habitat plan for your early successional songbirds and your pollinators and bees. And could you tell me a little bit about what you came in here and what you planted initially?
Well, we came in 5 years ago and put these hardwood trees in these rows in the CREP program, CP21. Once we had established the hardwood, we came in and planted the Lespedeza in between the rows of trees.
Okay.
Everything else has been natural.
So a lot of it just came up through the seed bed. Okay. Because what we're looking around, you see a lot of ragweed, which is good and beneficial for quail, and big blue stem grass. One thing I like to talk about is how fescue fields don't really do a lot of good for ground nesting birds. And if you think about little chicks trying to wander through the undergrowth, they really can't readily make it through that. So what we'd like to promote is the warm season grasses that don't grow as dense on the ground level, but it also provides good foraging from insects, and it's a rich source of protein in the spring and the summer when the chicks are trying to grow and put on mass.
The reasons that we've done it, and I think the primary benefits of it, are twofold. A, we're providing wildlife habitat. It benefits the deer, the quail, the turkeys, all wildlife. Secondly are the financial benefits. We're getting as much or more rent per acre than we were getting from the farmer producing row crops. And so we feel like we hadn't given anything up, and we're getting a real benefit financially and with the wildlife.
The benefits to the landowner can be numerous. Even though these practices may be called quail management practices, they benefit dozens of wildlife species, including numerous pollinating insects. This is something that we've really started to see across the landscape is a decline in pollinating insects. And I think, you know, if you're a farmer, you obviously know the benefits of pollinating insects.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll smoke the bees and calm them down. As a beekeeper, it's great to plant things that are good for my bees, a great nectar source, but also good for quail, because quail love yellow clover, they love crimson clover, they love buckwheat. People planting quail habitat help the bees and also help the quail, so it's a benefit to both the beekeeper and the people that want to see the quail come back.
Quail restoration in Virginia depends on people working together, and 22 conservation agencies have pledged to help landowners with monetary support, with technical know-how, and with boots on the ground.
The timing couldn't be better with continued declines, unfortunately, in bobwhite quail. It's really nice that we've gotten the program going now with our Quail Action Plan and the Bobwhite Quail Initiative to provide some funding, first off, to try to restore quail habitat and quail populations and try to reverse the trend that we've seen over the last good while. Try to educate some folks about quail habitat and quail management, and provide some demonstration areas so people can go out and see what quail habitat looks like. In turn, then those focal areas can serve as additional demonstration sites for other folks, other landowners, and others who are interested in bobwhite quail management.
Well, when you talk about conservation practices in general, oftentimes there'll be folks that are willing to do that. But sometimes you're going to meet people that are on the fence. It could be for economic reasons, various reasons, family concerns. And what we do as conservationists with the Natural Resources Conservation Service is not only do we give them world-class technical assistance, but we also educate farmers and landowners on the benefits not only of wildlife management but stewardship in general.
With the Farm Service Agency, we offer the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP for short. And in that program, we offer a specific practice that targets quail and songbirds, other related species. That program is offered specifically on cropland, so it's directed towards production agriculture and farmers involved in row crops. It's going to create early successional habitat that benefits quail, songbirds, and as well as pollinators.
We can bring quail back to Virginia. We can restore a precious piece of our southern heritage by changing the landscape we live in, but only if landowners answer the call of the bobwhite.
I got enough pleasure out of quail I've had enough pleasure out of quail in my lifetime to feel some responsibility to give back so that my grandchildren or great-grandchildren could enjoy that heritage I have.
Many folks have said that we're at a time where this is the last call for species like bobwhite quail and many others. And in some ways that's true. They cannot continue to decline forever without something being done to help those declines be reversed. So as a landowner, this is an opportune time in your life to be a part of species recovery. There's no time like the present. These species need your help now. They don't need your help 25 years from now. Now is the time to do it.
Quail is not the only species we are seeing decline. Birds and deer are also suffering from a decline of woodland habitat. Joining us now are Natural Resources and Conservation Biologist Justin Folks and from the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, Jay Jeffries. Gentlemen, welcome to Virginia Farming.
Welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Justin, I want to start with you. You are now let me get this right, private lands wildlife biologist.
That's correct.
Okay. Give us tell us what that is. What do you do?
Well, I'm one of 5 private lands wildlife biologists throughout the state of Virginia, and our positions were created for the Quail Recovery Initiative as a result of an agreement and a partnership between the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, and the Conservation Management Institute at Virginia Tech. And our primary job is to provide free technical assistance to landowners who are interested in creating and maintaining wildlife habitat on their private lands. And we specialize in the early successional old field type habitat that quail need to thrive. And we're also involved in the sign up and planning and design of habitat projects that are administered through the various cost share programs we have available.
Okay, so is that your main focus of the quail initiative?
The main focus is for the quail, obviously, but the type of habitat that quail need to survive definitely benefits a whole suite of other species out there that are in significant declines along with the bobwhite.
And this is not a new initiative. How long has this been going on, and what progress have you seen?
We started this initiative in 2010, and as far as the progress that we've seen so far, we've noticed that, as you saw in the video, there are individual landowners who are seeing some success at the property scale. They're noticing increases in bobwhites and some other early successional wildlife species on their properties. We're also noticing some beginnings of some quail quilts, as they mentioned in the video as well, piecing together patches of quail habitat in small areas. In King and Queen County, Sussex County, and Halifax County, we're beginning to see those quail quilts develop. And we're pretty encouraged with the results so far, because really our initiative is only in its infancy. We've only been doing this for 3 years or so, and it's going to take a while to restore bobwhite quail, but the results that we've seen so far are very encouraging.
It makes me chuckle when you say bobwhite. That's what I grew up calling them, because that's what my dad taught me. We would hear that call, and he said, "That's the bobwhite." And when I was little, I used to whistle that. Mm-hmm. And I was always proud of myself when I could sound like the bobwhite. Now, the Quail Recovery Initiative is that only happening in Virginia, because this is not just a Virginia problem?
Correct. It's a widespread problem. We're not alone in this decline. It's the 25 state range of the northern bobwhite in the U.S. They're all experiencing declines similar to what we are. Virginia has been 80% decline over the last 40 years or so. But there's a lot of other states that are seeing the same thing as we are. And actually there's a National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative that was formed, where these 25 states, the wildlife professionals in those states, come together and share ideas and information in an effort to develop a concerted effort to restore bobwhites on a national level.
Okay. And you have the certain areas in Virginia that you are really targeting heavily, correct?
Correct. We have 6 quail priority areas. There on the map there will be the areas that are outlined in red. But these are the areas that we kind of focus our efforts in to really develop these quail quilts that we're talking about. And there's also state financial assistance for wildlife practices on people's private lands that they can do in those areas. So we've targeted some money at those areas, and we're just targeting our education and outreach efforts there as well.
Okay, good. Well, it sounds like it's working. All this hard work is making progress, so that's good news.
And our intent is to build momentum in these priority areas to hopefully carry over to other parts of the state and continue on in the future.
Okay. All right. Well, Jay, let's leave quail behind for a little bit. We've talked about quail. Let's talk about some of the other wildlife that is needing some help, and what's going on with your department.
Okay. Well, Justin has been talking about the quail initiative and the songbirds that use farmlands and field habitat. Another concern we have is for our forest land throughout Virginia, where we do have a significant conservation need, particularly west of the Blue Ridge. And that need specifically is there is a significant lack of young forest habitat.
So what is young forest as opposed to old forest, or just forest?
Okay, all right. As you focus west of the Blue Ridge, about 1/3 of the state, and almost 2/3 of that landscape is forested, primarily the Appalachian region, southern Appalachians as we know it. That area, the forest land, is not unhealthy per se, it's just that it's out of balance. In other words, most of that landscape, most of those millions of acres, are in older age forest. And so what we don't have is a significant amount of young forest coming along to replace that. The young forest habitat is significant because a variety of species need and depend on that for their life cycle requirements.
Okay, so the older forests, then how do we manage that? Is that done from timber?
Well, there are a variety of ways. What we don't have anymore, of course, are the wildfires that burned back in pre-colonial times, that sort of thing,
Sure.
that kept that landscape, that woodland landscape, a mosaic and allowed sunlight to enter. So one of the ways that we benefit there is using prescribed burning, which the U.S. Forest Service is using on a much larger scale in recent years. They've been doing prescribed burns across the forest at a rate of about 15,000 acres per year. But also what we need to do is, yes, increase the amount of forest management activity, that is, harvesting of trees that have reached their age limit or nearly so. And this is done through modern forestry practices. It's all science-based, and it will yield that early successional young forest habitat that we so vitally need.
So cutting down these trees is not bad. I think a lot of people think that, oh, you should never bother these trees. They're here for hundreds of years, and we need to keep them around, but they need to be managed.
Exactly right. And this is one of the biggest problems we have, in that it's not intuitive that cutting trees is a good thing. As a matter of fact, many of our hunters and many lay people think that cutting of trees damages the habitat. Not in the current environment we have. We desperately need to reintroduce that activity, and we're going about doing that through a regional program, educational program, that involves Virginia and 15 other states in the Northeast, through the Northeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and the Habitat Committee. And in fact, we have a Young Forest Communications Handbook that describes the need, what the benefits are from doing good, active, science-based forest management on your property.
Okay.
So that's one of our primary benefits or plans of action right now, is education. And of course, the game department has already jump-started some activities. See, we own 39 wildlife management areas encompassing over 200,000 acres across Virginia.
Wow.
150,000 of those acres are timbered lands west of the Blue Ridge. So we're beginning some active young forest management projects on these lands.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you've got your work cut out for you. That's an awful lot of acreage to cover, but I think you're starting with education, and even this show is educating folks on on timber management and what we need to do.
Right, and I think the key for our success, much like our quail recovery initiative, will be in the fact that we're involved in collaboration with the U.S. Forest Service, Department of Conservation and Recreation, and also the Nature Conservancy.
Okay. Well, great. Well, you guys are doing a super job, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That does it for our show this week. Have a great week, everyone. I'm Amy Rocher for Virginia Farming.
This program is brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. From apples to zucchini, Virginia farmers work hard to put food on your table. And Farm Bureau works year-round to help farmers and all Virginians. Farming, it's all good. To learn more, go to vafarmbureau.org.
Polaris, offering its hardest working, smoothest riding full-size workhorses, including the all-new 60-horsepower Ranger XP 900. Hunt, farm, or trail. Polaris has the full-size Ranger you want at Polaris.com.
Brought to you by Farm Family. Life, auto, business, farm. Steve Morse, fruit grower, distiller, entrepreneur. Another personal story on farmfamilypeople.com. Farm Family, the people you know.